I get up in the morning and I would look in the mirror and say, I can't go one more day.
The story of Michael and Cammy Franzese actually begins in the 1980s, before they ever met. Young and smart, Michael Franzese, the so-called yuppie Don, had decided to follow in the footsteps of his stepfather, Sonny Franzese, who members of the mob knew as the enforcer of New York's Colombo crime family syndicate. During this time, Michael reportedly set up brilliant financial scams that netted him millions of dollars. At one time, he boasted of fixing Major League Baseball games and boxing matches. But in his biggest scam, Michael teamed up with the president of Vantage Petroleum. Over 4 years, they cheated the government out of $1 billion in gasoline excise taxes. That's when Michael went into the movie business and met the woman of his dreams, 19-year-old Cammy Garcia.
It was a physical attraction first, but I just watched the way she carried herself on the film. You know, she was just different. She was kind of aloof. She would separate herself from the rest of the pack, and she had integrity, and it's something that you don't see a lot on a movie set. And you know, there was an innocence about her that I saw, and that was attractive to me. And so, you know, I decided to pursue it.
Michael couldn't put his finger on what made this woman so attractive to him.
She started talking about God, and you know, you don't hear that on a movie set, and I didn't expect that from her. So I wasn't really interested in hearing about God. I was just interested in seeing, you know, the totality of this young girl.
Cammy remembers meeting Michael on the set.
When I first met him, I thought that he was very nice and charming, and I knew there was something different about him, and everybody was drawn to him.
Except for her.
Except for me.
That probably made her irresistible to you, right?
Michael pursued Cammy relentlessly. They began to date and eventually fell in love. But it was Cammy's example and the simple message of the gospel that eventually helped Michael realize his need for a savior. Just before they married in 1985, Michael trusted Jesus as his savior. But even then, Cammy didn't know the nature of Michael's business.
You had no idea?
I had no idea, no.
What you were getting into?
No, zero.
No, she's a 19-year-old
I mean, there were
girl from Anaheim.
a few innuendos, but they just went right over my head. You know, as time went on, obviously it became clear to me that there was something going on. You know, maybe he's just a little bit like my dad. You know, maybe he does things that, you know, he's colorful, you know. Totally clueless as to what really organized crime meant and all of the things that, you know, they were involved with. So I really didn't know that until we were married.
During the early days of your relationship, did you ever, once you finally realized the extent to which he was involved in the mob, did you ever say, okay, look, buddy, it's either me or the mob. Make a choice?
Never.
Really?
Mm-mm. Because I knew that God was changing him early on, and I knew that there would be a transformation in his life. And my mother said, be diligent in prayer. She said, I've been praying for this man from the moment you told me you had dinner with him, because I just had a feeling.
You know, Lisa, because of the way she handled it, had she said to me, you know, it's me or your life, I probably would have resisted that, because you know, it would have been a challenge to something that I was committed to. But the way she handled it, it was me that realized that the life I was leading was a direct contradiction to what she believed, and that if I wanted her in my life, I'd have to make a choice.
You eventually did end up serving prison time.
I ultimately took a plea on racketeering charges involving the gas business for a 10-year prison sentence and a big fine, a $15 million fine. And she said, well, you know, if that's what it takes, you know, to preserve the rest of our life, she was young, she said, then we'll do it. And we were fortunate, we were blessed in that we had a child. You know, she was pregnant when all of this was going on.
Cammy, what was it like for you while he was in prison, raising your children on your own?
It was hard. You know, people thought because I lived on the Wilshire corridor and I had nice cars and I could do and go anywhere I wanted to go, but there was really nowhere I wanted to go because I was alone.
Michael served 4 of his 10-year sentence, got out, and before he knew what happened, he'd violated his parole.
They picked me up and they said, you violated, and that's it. I had no clue. And You know, she was devastated. I mean, you know, just leaving and not come home. I mean, it was terrible.
The judge sent him back to prison. But this time, his prison became his path to real freedom.
I let my wife down, I let my kids down. I mean, it was just horrible. Everybody, the mob wanted to kill me, the government wanted to make me a witness, and I was just in the middle of a horrible, horrible night. And I'm sitting in that cell. You know, the guard just so happens out of nowhere, he said, "You don't look too good." And he pushed the Bible through the little slot. And he gives me the Bible, and I pick it up and I just throw it against the wall. Didn't want to hear it. But, you know, I got scared at that moment. I said, you know what, I got everybody else mad at me. I don't need God mad at me. So within about a minute's time, I picked the Bible back up, and I said, let me read this thing. I opened the Bible that night. I see Proverbs 16:7, and it says, when a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, even his enemies are at peace with him. For me, what had to happen is God had to break me down and put me at my lowest point to make me realize, you've given me your life, okay, now let me be in control. It's not you anymore. You're not in control. You never really have been. And that started me on my journey and my, you know, maturing my walk with Christ. And I did 3 years more, 29 months in the hole. They kept me in segregation, where I just ate, drank, slept, the Bible.
And if his second imprisonment was a trial by fire for Michael, it proved even more difficult for Cammy.
The second time was even more difficult than I could have imagined, because I had him home for a little while and had 2 kids at this time.
But this time, Michael did whatever he could to help.
So from prison, you would call the plumber
Call the plumber?
and tell him to come to the house and fix the plumbing problem.
I three-way him in.
She three-way me.
And for a long time,
From prison.
nobody even realized that he was away.
You're not allowed to do that, by the way. You know, if you get caught, you get put in the hole. But I took the chance.
What would you say to other women who are standing faithfully with their husband, and maybe their husband isn't in the mob, but he's involved in some kind of lifestyle that he can't break free from?
I really truly believe that if you are a woman going through something with a loved one, your husband, or a husband going through something with his wife, you need to have somebody around you to pray with you, to pray for you, to hold you up. You cannot do it alone.
Do you think you'd be alive today if it weren't for this praying woman sitting next to you?
There's no question that I'd either be dead or in prison for the rest of my life. And that's not even a guess. That's absolute. It's difficult to keep a relationship together, just under normal circumstances some kind, because we're in this world and there's a lot of things pulling at you all the time. And I understand fully that if God wasn't the center of our relationship, that we wouldn't have made it. God has been our strength and our foundation.